without fear and the head is held high. The lines from the tango's poetry helps each of us to realize how much we owe to our independence as a sovereign nation, as a liberal society, or a liberated human being. We should not take this freedom as for granted. Looking at the present circumstances as it is going on in the country, it's not only a threat from outside, but it is a threat from within. We are more concerned about the security of our great nation. So this current session is dedicated to the national security. This session, the chairperson for this session is Dr. Aavaahn17, and he is currently working as the president of ABVP Delhi. Dr. Mittal has done his doctorate in electronics. He is an ABVP Karyakarta since 2001. He is currently working as associate professor in the Bhaskaracharya College of Applied Sciences. Now may I request Mr. Ravi and Dr. Mittal to be seated on this stage. I also request coordinators to felicitate Dr. Mittal with the bouquet and a memento.
Mr. Ravi is in 1976 India, retired as IV Special Director in 2012. Now he is here with us to speak on national security. I request Mr. Ravi please be introduced.
My dear friends, very good morning to you all. First of all, I'd like to thank the organizers for organizing this event, giving me an opportunity to come and be with the young minds of the country and sharing with you some broad and important currents of national security. You know, there was a time when security used to be considered the obligation of the state and state alone. And people had perhaps either no role or marginal role. Thank you. It's no longer the case. While the state remains the main provider of security, today it cannot successfully deliver security to its people without cooperation of the people. You know, it's a big country, it's a continent. And obviously when you have a country of a continent size, the issues will be myriad, so many. I'm not going into all these. We have a lot of issues which are there. Primarily I will be touching upon the emerging threats which have serious implications, serious adverse implications for the integrity of our country and something that might come in the way of country meeting its destiny. For very long, our country has been deprived of what it should, the position that it deserves, it should have. I would like you to, having given the outline, the broad currents, I would like you to think over it and what all way you can contribute, and you can contribute in a very, very major way. at the National Security Council, where I am placed, it's my job, daily job, to monitor the threats that is emanating from various sources, internal, external, and find ways how to neutralize. I'm not going into that. As I said, it's a country of a continent size, and as a result, as a consequence, it will have many, many, many issues. But the broad currents which you need to think over, and I'll come straight to those points. Today, threats are mostly invisible. So long the threats were visible, it was easy, because you know your enemy, you know your adversary, you know all about it, its broad size, its intentions, its capacity, and you could accordingly prepare yourself and see how to deal with it. But how do you deal with an enemy which is invisible, the threat, which remains very, very amorphous but very, very powerful? We need to concentrate on those, focus on those threats. And to put simply, I would classify these under three categories. One threat is, which has a very insidious potential for the country's integrity, is, certain fissures, certain social fissures that we have due to certain distortions over centuries. Those fissures have emerged, and this is exploited by adversarial forces. The social fissures, if accentuated to a fault line, then we have a major problem. And this we cannot afford. Say, for example, Dalit versus non-Dalits. Now, we should not dismiss it as something which is peripheral or something that can easily be whisked away. Because they would like to destabilize this country and create problem. They would like to, the social feature, they would like to accentuate it and bring the divide. Because, if you are strong from within, then you can take on any force, any threat. But if you are weakened from within, you are vulnerable. This word is sick body becomes sick, and you are open to all kinds of pathologies. And we get weak if the body polity, its social fissures, are accentuated into fault lines. People with different so-called ideology, so-called interest, and sometimes even without knowing the consequences of it, they fall prey to these mobilizations. Political mobilizations at various levels. And in the process, they end up doing far greater damage to the body polity. It's not very easy to overcome it, but we have to be alert. And we have to take all possible measures to see that these fissures are healed rather than accentuated into fault lines. I'm not coming to the conventional, traditional threats. You have a Maoist threat, you have a separatist threat. I'm coming to the broad. These are all threats which are known, we can deal with it. Maoist, we are dealing with the separatist movement, Northeast, because we are dealing with that. That's not an issue. You need to focus on the threats of tomorrow, the threats which are going to be a genuine major threats, which government alone, the state alone cannot deal with. then you have to be alert and prepared for it. So this social fissure, historical regions, a lot of distortions which have crept into the society, this being exploited by vested interest. And possible combinations of which emerge, or which are emerging, or which might emerge in future. We need to be very cognizant of it and be alert what to do. I'm just first outlining this. Second threat is the growth and expansion of the violent extremist faith. I'm not using the word radicalization and all. These are they have become cliche. How do you define who is radicalized, who is not radicalized, and what do you mean by it is? The West has been using the word radicalized. We don't necessarily have to. We have to look the problem, first of all, we must look the problem into the face of it. Here in this closed circle, I am not going to be careful about political correctness. We are talking straight. Unless you look at the problem straight into the face of it, how do you face it? How do you confront it? So, the growth of violent extremist faith is going to be a huge, or going to be a major problem. 2 years back, when in February 2015, when White House had conducted an international summit against violent extremism, I had gone over as India's representative. I could say proudly to the international community that look, when the rest of the speakers, rest of the country was talking about Islamic State growth, of course Al-Qaeda has been there for some time, but the latest was Islamic State coming over from different parts of the world. We could say that look, there is hardly anyone from India. And then we could take pride in saying that look, we have a syncretic culture. We have a 1,000 years of history of plural society coexisting in a symbiotic relations with each other. So we have so much of inner resilience that it doesn't give a space to any extreme belief. 2 years down the line, I am afraid we cannot say the same thing today. Today we have our boys fighting in Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan. Number may be small, but it can grow. Number is still in 2 digits, but that doesn't give us any comfort because the way the virus is growing, it's extremely worrisome. A belief system, a faith that believes, I'm not talking, it is not an ideology, it's not, ये विचारधारा नहीं है, ये विश्वास है. Because if it is an ideology, you can counter it with an ideology, there can be a debate. But when it is a viswas, a faith, how do you argue with a faith? You can't argue with a faith. When a faith, a set of people start subscribing to a faith that says that no, theirs is the only faith, it is the supreme faith, and all other faith must fall in line or they must be erased. if necessary by using force. Then we are in serious trouble. You know, Islam in this country is pretty old. It has a history of 1,000 years, maybe plus. But never before we were faced with situations where people are being institutionally indoctrinated into believing this. We have schools, and here I am coming to the point how we go about it, leaving some thoughts with you. The schools which at the primary level, at the primary, very impressionable age, the kids who have not even entered the teens, when they are taught in their course material, Kerala High Court has taken some serious note of it, some of you personally are aware of it, which is so exclusivist that no others have no place in it. Other faith has no place in it, and it is the obligation of every believer to see that their faith becomes the faith, the ruling faith. Now, there are three attributes to this kind of extremist faith. One, it doesn't believe in constitution of a country. Constitution is what? Man-made law. We all believe, the civilized world believes that every generation is free to determine how the society should be organized, what is good for the society, what all the steps we need to take. There are values which come down from generations. Those values to be respected, fine. But no generation has a right to govern beyond the grave. So, a civilized society has a constitution which lays down the broad principles how the society will be governed. Now it doesn't believe in that constitution. It said no. This man-made law is unacceptable. This is one. And they don't make any bone about it. They are very clear. Second, they don't believe in secularism. When secularism again is an imported expression. People have different interpretations of it, but what we have been practicing and believing in is that what we call is equal respect to all faith. Every faith has a right to coexist with others, and perfect, fine. There's no quarrel with anyone. But they say, these violent extremists, they say that look, this faith is the only faith that everyone has to follow, others have no business to exist. So it is anti-secularism. Secularism using the term for the sake of convenience, because that's a term which we widely use. And the third is, it doesn't believe in democracy. Society, the human society by nature is diverse. Diversities are of various natures. Diversity is in terms of language, in terms of subcultures, cultures, in terms of rights rituals, in terms of even racial differences. The societies, human societies, are by and large, it is a fact, it is a diverse society. And diverse society can coexist together with the mutual acceptance of each other's position, and the fact that let us together have possible have a consensus, or let there be a system by which people they elect their representative, or direct or indirect form of a governance system. He doesn't believe in that. He says, no, this is anti-Islamic. There has to be caliph, emir, caliphate. So the three fundamental principles of a civilized society, and which are so dear to us, are adherence to the constitution, secularism, and democracy. They openly challenge all these three pillars. Now, my question is, so long, this is my personal belief. I don't believe in constitution. I don't believe in secularism. I don't believe in democracy. It is my personal belief. I have nothing to do with others. It's fine. I think society should not mind if I remain committed to this kind of belief. This is a person who has a certain idea. But when it becomes the guiding principles of organizations, they work on these lines, then we are in trouble. Because it's highly destructive. Not only it disrupts the social harmony, but cuts at the very fundamentals of what constitute this country. Now this is going to be a major threat, the way it is growing, and the way we have been shy of confronting it. Confronting does not necessarily mean, because any kind of you will simply take an extreme position contrary to it. But the fact is that there is a need for a debate, a discussion. Does freedom of expression extend to the point where institutionally the idea which is anti-constitution, anti-secularism, anti-democracy should have a freedom to use various means to mobilize themselves and to become a major force? We look at it as a big problem of tomorrow. Unfortunately, in this country, the security discourse has become so politically sanitized that we don't like to call a spade a spade. And as a result, we have often preferred to look the other way, thinking that perhaps the problem it might resolve itself. It will not. The way it is expanded, imagine. Especially our peninsular India is very badly affected. At one point of time, we used to take pride in the harmony, the social harmony of Kerala. And today, it is the epicenter of the growth of this kind of belief system. The increasing urbanization of Indian Muslims is a huge disruptive force that we need to be conscious of, and we have to find ways. At the state level, at the government level, we are grappling with it. Because the fact is, for a very, very long time, all these years, we have not even had the courage to look at it squarely in the face. And now that we are trying to confront it and try to address it, it's a big challenge. So the first, I said, the social fissures, which are being accentuated as fault lines. It can be devastating. The consequences of it can be unimaginable. Second, the growth of the violent extremist faith, which has a potentially large base. As I said that 2 years back we could say at the White House that with 180 million population, potentially of that faith, they are being so syncretic and they are proud of that. Is now the scenario is changing. It is becoming a major issue. How do we do it? How do we address this issue? The third one, which is going to be the threat, which is a threat of today and going to be a threat of tomorrow, which is technology given, cyber and digital space, threat emanating from cyber and digital space. You know, the days of direct conflict, fight, are getting over. I won't say that it is over already, but direct conflict or direct war are proving to be cost ineffective. Any direct conflict exacts a heavy cost, not only the country which is weak, but also the country which is strong. So, the alternative ways of warfare are emerging, where the one who dominates the cyber and the digital space is the one which has the upper hand. It's a battle for the mind of the people. They change your perception. You win the war without fighting the battle. You know, first it's with total deniability. How do you find out? Where is the source from where the cyber threat has emanated? Even when you point out there is some argument to say that no, these are all spoofed or not, that's not the correct one, and you cannot say with certainty that no, it is from here. It can be extremely disruptive. It can take away the gains that you have made after investing so much. How China is doing it very, very smartly. What Americans, they gain in their field of technology, field of weaponry, they get into it through hacking. They're getting into the system, pulling out things. The billions of dollars which has gone into R&D is China takes advantage of it by just a few or a band of hackers. Disruptive because it can be, I don't have to tell you how disruptive it can be. We are under we have been, it's very ironical that India is considered one of the leading countries in soft power, IT soft power. Now people are doing a wonderful job abroad. But we are equally soft when it comes to cyber defense. And we are quite vulnerable. Digital. You know, the first feel of it we got in this country, and thereafter there have been quite a lot. First perceptible feel of it we got in 2012 when there was some situation in Assam and something which was morphed across the border in Pakistan. It was disseminated and it led to several 100,000 people from Assam migrating from leaving this Karnataka, Andhra, even from Kerala. They started rushing back. There was exodus of people. Many industries were shut down. They couldn't work. And this was a huge public order management. Because some riot happened, a small scale riot happened in Assam. Some agencies somewhere across the border, they morphed something, they disseminated as if this was what was happening in Assam. And as a reaction, people, Assamese, those who were, people from the whole northeast, not because people do not sort of distinguish who is from Assam or from northeast, they all felt so insecure, and it was so orchestrated that they had to leave and had to rush. It took quite some time before they could be sent back. Today we hear it, we see it on a day-to-day basis. It is happening all over in Kashmir. It is through use of digital platforms, a lot of unrest being created. You read in the newspaper very often that counter-terrorism initiatives, operations are often disrupted by a large crowd coming and crowd of stone pelters. How do they come? The quick system of information passing on to them and they respond. Flash crowd. Within hours, people assemble and start disrupting it. They are visible disruptions, but there are a lot which are going silently to changing the mind of the people. By managing the social media and also the other media, electronic and print. I'll show you, I'll give you illustrations. Today we know that how the tension is brewing between China and South Korea. Because North Korea is increasingly becoming more and more belligerent nuclear power. South Korea, for its defense, has to put certain defense mechanism. Now, China doesn't like that because those defense mechanisms are being instituted, being stationed with the help of Americans. China doesn't want. Now, China has succeeded in dividing the Korean society, South Korean society. Now there are not many people in South Korea who believe that South Korea was wrong or is wrong. Why should they allow Americans to come and set up the system? I mean, it's not that the South Korean nationalism is playing out. That itself can be an instrument of mobilization. But the fact that by infiltrating into the social media and digital space of South Korea and also the print media. In the case of Australia. The government of Australia, they often tell us that they have a serious problem today. Because they have got into Australian media in such a big way and Australian social media, the Chinese, that ability of Australian government to take a decision, autonomous decision in the interest of Australia is becoming more and more difficult. Come home, our own country. I don't know how many of you have noticed. Very often you will find news coming in all our dailies, English dailies, at least. For example, a few days back, most of this, our English dailies published, China is China says the key to border solution lies with India, make some concession in northeast, the eastern, and we can settle the issue. And the whole thing is produced verbatim. So, by and large, you will see of nowadays it is becoming almost everyday affair. You read it carefully. The entire Chinese perspective is being dished out to Indian readers, and how people are falling victim by just reproducing it as it is without giving the Indian perspective. A battle of mind, a battle of perception. A sense is being created that look, China is very fair. China, it wants to resolve the issue. I think there is something intransigent about Indian government that they are not accommodating, they are not reasonable. Whereas it is in the reality it is the opposite. But getting into a lot of things are coming also into the digital space. A lot of things are emanating from China. It is coming, streaming in our country. The way our systems are getting more and more interconnected, networked, it is a given fact that the future war is going to be, or a conflict is going to be network-centric. And there, we have to have that capability. For cyber, our action plans require, suppose this is a very conservative estimate, that we need 500,000 mathematicians who will work for encryption, decryption. That is the requirement, conservative requirement projected by the government. Perhaps our requirement would be more. Because one who dominates the cyber world dominates the world. That is how it is going to be. We may do surgical strike, we may have all these things, we will do that, we will continue doing that. But decisive resolution of conflict will be only through the cyber. That is another area where we need to be very, very alert. We need to build that capacity. We need to build the capacity, and that's where young minds have to work on. Of course, government has to create a conducive atmosphere for that. But essentially, the talent pool has to come from the young minds. Friends, I have underlined three basic emerging threats that India is confronting, and for which we need to be prepared for, and where you all have, in your own way, can contribute a lot. These are the three major. Rest are, I would not consider it as something that's a matter which is of a great concern for the Indian state, has the capacity to deal with all this. But these three are something that, how to deal with this social fissures, how to see that a syncretic cultural environment of India is consolidated, is strengthened more and more. The counter narrative, or the narrative that they have created, they are trying to create, the counter narrative they are trying to create is effectively countered. How is it that the violent extremist faith is not allowed to grow? And how is it that we dominate the cyber world. Now, I'd like to stop here and ask I'm here before you. If you have some issues, some questions to ask and raise, feel free.
Myself from Delhi, the college in Delhi. So my question is, sir, thank you for briefing us about the national security, so what fear we have, what security we need to have in the future, what we should be fear of in the today only. But you created a state of fear in my mind that should I be fearful of the phrase that it needs to be Muhammad Sharik, my best friend it needs to be, that he believes in Islam and Allah and goes about rage that when I pinpoint the same issues about anti-nationalism, which is about the constitution against secularism and democracy, should I be fearful of him? And if yes, then should we go the Trump way of creating a wall, of creating a barrier, or holding surgical strikes? And if not, then what are the other issues? Have you not had debates earlier, like when this OAC said about that Bharat Mata Ki Jai is against Islam? So have you not had debates earlier? If yes, then what other ways we can step down the sphere of Islamic State?
Done. Thank you. First of all, if I have made you fearful, that's not my intention. I am just waking you up. Fearful is not. There is no question of, because the moment you are fearful, you are overawed by the problem, by the threat. And again I said, when I said violent extremist faith, it is not against Islam. I don't say that. The point is that how do you explain about 75 to 80 of our boys going and fighting today in Iraq, Syria and Afghanistan? How is it that you have a good number of people, much larger people who are trying to go, we are stopping them. They are getting motivated by a belief system, a faith. This faith, we should not brush it aside. It is going to be a major threat. If it is not, we are not aware of and we do not counter it. I have a lot of Muslim friends, nothing wrong. We have been living together for 1,000 years. What is wrong about it? No. And I tell you also that they are the ones who are the most afraid. They are the ones who feel that, look, because of this, these people, those who are creating these people, we are all being made as a suspect. This is very unfortunate. It is our obligation to see that they don't become suspect. We need to strengthen that. How come? My point is, how come for hundreds of years our people of all Hindus and Muslims all, they have been going to mazars. They have been going to, whether it is Salim Chishti, whether it is Hazrat Nizamuddin. How come these institutions are under threat today? How they are being attacked and destroyed? Who is worst affected? It is they. They are the people who are the first. Feel afraid. Many of the ulemas from many of these reputed institutions, they come and say, how do we do it? We just do not know. Because we are the one who are the worst. We are the one who are feeling most sort of insecure. So, answer is not to suspect Muslims. No, that is not. We cannot. We have lived together for very, very long time, and let's not anyone raise question on that. The question is that we need to be conscious of this and how to stop it. And this started essentially after petrodollar. Tell me how many Mughal rulers went to Makkah for doing the sort of hijrah? I am not aware of. Did anyone go? They used to go to Dargah of Salim Chishti or Ajmer Sharif there, or Nizamuddin, we had our own saints, we had our own faqirs, we had our own spiritual leaders. How come an external influence is contaminating the behavior and the thought process of some people in the community so much so that the whole ethos of this culture, security culture, is being hijacked? I'm supposed to be addressing young minds who are open and thinking. I am not here to instill fear or instill a set of prejudice, no. India is a plural country, a plural society, a plural culture, plural civilization, and it can only exist like that. And we need to build it. Trump is not an answer. No, we don't do that. We have to be conscious of this. We need to strengthen these forces who are, themselves are feeling, those who are feeling insecure and they feel helpless. No. There's no zingoism. There is no reason to be afraid. I am waiting. We have to be aware. I am looking at the future threats, because if you don't look at the problem in the face, then I think you are only being politically correct and perhaps waiting for. Because this country has suffered very badly because of this. Millions of people have lost lives. So much blood has been shed on this because we perhaps we have been shy of confronting the issue, facing as it is. Confronting the issue doesn't mean that belligerent, to be belligerent. Confronting the issue is to understanding the issue in its magnitude and see if it is a threat, how to address it. No. India has a place for all. Indian culture is not so small that it believes that no, the others cannot exist. A cross and a crescent is not an issue for India. And we have been such a, look at this, we have been rocks, trees, rivers, moons, stars, believe, don't believe, everything is there. Because we believe that in that universal spirit that permeates all of us. That has been the guiding Sanatan philosophy in this country. So no, I don't say that you have to be afraid of your Muslim friend. In fact, my problem is that, which I would like to tell is, how come, and to the young mind, how come that we are not, there is certain amount of obligation on us also to reach out. How many of us have got a good number of, or a significant number of Muslim friends? Then why is it that? How come? Good, I'm happy. Perhaps this is not the case in general. How come the Urdu language franchisee has been given to a particular community? Why is it not that we take, it is sort of accepted? A lot of things to do. We have to be, India is is a very large heart. It can absorb all diversity. That is the beauty of it. Yes. Yeah.
So,
yeah.